All right, we continue to monitor the crisis in Ukraine. Here's the very latest we know. Lawmakers in Ukraine approved a state of emergency amid fears of a Russian invasion.
Lots still going on and developing at this hour. This while the President Biden, has introduced new sanctions against Russia. Joining us now to talk more about that, Associate Professor Mathew Smith from the University of New Haven. Professor Smith, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
So first of all, what does this new state of emergency status do for the people of Ukraine?
So it's a full mobilization of society. It's essentially total war. They're calling up every able-bodied man up to age 60, and people have been preparing for a while in civil defense units, men and women, to defend the country and fall back into an insurgency. And so this is an admission that this is war, that it is a reinvasion of the country, and that everybody is ready.
You know Russia well. We've talked with you many times before. You lived over there. You've studied Putin. How concerned are you right now that there is going to be a war in Ukraine?
There is a war. The war has been going on since 2014. This is an escalation of that already existing war. It's here. If the question is, do I think that there will be a large-scale reinvasion of Ukraine, I would say that's far more likely than not. There's lots of guesswork here, but yes.
Two questions here, Professor. I think we've been seeing the United States impose sanctions and then impose harsher sanctions. Right now, there's really nothing else to be waiting for. War has been declared by the Ukrainian people. As you're saying, a full-scale invasion is probable, could be happening in the near future. What's next? Do we just keep imposing sanctions, or what do you see happening in the next, 6 weeks?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is that the history of sanctions, even outside of Ukraine, has not been very good. They're not great ways to compel foreign leaders to do the things we want them to do, in this case, to stop the war or to pull back. In the case of applying these sanctions to Vladimir Putin and to his inner circle, the so-called oligarchs, I think it's a misunderstanding. When Putin came to power, he crushed the oligarchs. He arrested several of them. He drove them out of the country. And what you have left are billionaires. But they don't have the same kind of influence and control over Putin or the government that their forebears did in the early 2000s. And what that means is a couple things. First, many of these guys, right, and they're almost all guys, agree with Putin's vision for things, for his idea to unite Ukraine and Russia, culturally and politically, and build on this vision for a greater future that is controlled by Moscow. So they're not necessarily going to turn on Putin right away. They will accept a lot of pain in order to, accept that sacrifice for the greater good.
Professor,
secondly, go ahead.
Professor, does President Putin even care that we're doing these sanctions?
I think he does. There's definitely risk to him, but I don't think he feels it yet. And the other thing I was going to say is that he has been hoarding cash for the military and other places, and so have the billionaires for several years now. So they've got some slush funds set up that they can ride this out for a while.
Obviously, a lot still developing. We're out of time, but I just curious. Americans are paying more for gas now than anyone wants to be paying. Do you see that ending anytime soon?
No, unfortunately, I don't. Chaos in the world creates chaos in the markets, and prices go up. The other thing I'd look for is prices to go up on food products, wheat and corn, because Russia and Ukraine are two of the largest exporters of corn, together about 30%. Of wheat. 30% of the world market.
As this continues, Professor, we'd love to keep having you on to explain explain to us what's going on in your eyes overseas.
Thank you, Dr. Schmidt.
Of course.